They say a single look can change everything. But in this small town, that look turned a school hallway into a battleground over race, power, and perception. It was a crisp Thursday morning at Maple Grove High School, the kind of ordinary day that starts exactly the same. Students shuffling into classrooms, chatter bouncing off lockers, teachers scanning attendance. Among them was Maurice Carter, a 16-year-old black junior. He walked the halls with purpose, backpack slung low, headphones tucked in his pocket, a notebook full of art sketches under his arm. Maurice was known among friends as thoughtful, creative, kind, as someone who could draw you into a quiet conversation just by catching your eye. He wasn't loud. He wasn't the class clown. He was, most importantly, himself. Then he walked past the principal's office, and everything shifted. The door clicked open. Yellow tile reflected the fluorescent light. Principal Linda Anderson, a white woman in her early 50s, with authority etched into her posture, looked up from her desk. She'd heard about him before. Maurice had good grades. No field trip issues. But this morning she saw something different. His stride purposeful, gaze intense, art notebook clutched tight, and she felt it. A sense of threat. A shadow of unease. She cleared her throat to mask a reaction she couldn't define, and spoke into intercom. "Miss Carter, please escort Maurice Carter to my office immediately." She'd never called him by his last name before. Her voice was calm, but the change in pronoun felt like a verdict. Word spread fast. Maurice followed his teacher down the corridor in a daze. What did he do? What? He knocked at the door, entered. The room smelled of old coffee and paperwork. The blinds were closed. Principal Anderson was behind the desk. Two vice principals flanked her with stiff postures. Her eyes flicked over him, then she began, "Maurice, you've been accused of appearing threatening. Witnesses reported that during the 7:52 a.m. hallway shift, you made several students uncomfortable with your demeanor." She paused to let the words sink in. Maurice felt the color drain from his face. Threatening? He felt seen, sure. But as a threat? He swallowed, heart beating double time. This was surreal. Several students confirmed they were afraid that you might lash out. Some said you looked like you were plotting something. The phrasing was chilling. The principal's voice was soft but heavy, like a verdict. "I've reviewed video from the hallway cameras," she said. They extracted a clip, grainy footage of Maurice walking steadily, but framed as ominous music might underscore a villain in a TV show. She clicked, "Your posture. Your face. The tension you radiated." Maurice glanced out the window. He processed that his face, his walk, his skin, had been judged on mute and noise. His teacher stood in the wings, torn. Should speak up but couldn't. Principal Anderson's hand hovered above the folder marked "Discipline." Inside, an internal report filled with vague terms like intimidating, physically imposing, even lack of explanation of destination. Maurice felt trapped by empty words. He opened his mouth. I was late to class, Ms. Anderson. I was rushing." She cut him off. She clenched her jaw. "Your explanation doesn't excuse causing panic among students. The school cannot risk anyone feeling unsafe." Within minutes, Maurice found himself suspended, just another form handed over, 3 days effective immediately. No right to return to classes until further notice. Shame. Confusion. The hallways outside fell eerily silent as he was escorted away. Word spread through the school. They turned whispers about "scary black kid" into headlines in lockers. Photos of him walking past that office clipped to Snapchat snippets. Comments flew. Some students applauded the school's quick action. Others whispered it was profiling. Maurice left the building with his arms wrapped around himself. His mother met him at the parking lot with tears in her eyes and questions he couldn't answer. That afternoon the local district paper ran a short account under the headline, "High School Suspends Student for Intimidating Behavior." No mention of race. No quotes from Maurice, only administrative statements about safety protocols. The story painted a neutral picture. A student, suspension, caution. But Maurice's community saw something else. A turning point. A racial fault line exposed within institutional authority. He posted on Instagram, "I was just myself. Now they call me a threat." Support poured in from classmates, mostly black, who recalled times they were told to calm down or stop being so aggressive when they spoke passionately. Some white friends spoke up too, describing Maurice's behavior as normal, curious, animated, engaged. One desecrated phrase repeated, "He only looked mean because he didn't say hi." That evening, an opinion writer at the small paper, Mark Lewis, reached out to Maurice's family. Mark had seen the story, overlooked the deeper issue: racial bias baked into behavior assessments. He recorded interviews and reviewed the hallway CCTV. He spoke to students who said they felt uneasy, but quickly retracted when asked why. "I thought he looked angry because his eyebrows were down, but he was just focused," said one. Mark also found video of a white student walking down the same hall earlier, posture erect with headphones but no punitive call. He published part 2 of the story, Face Value: How Black Demeanor is Mistaken as Threat in Our Schools. It went viral on local social media. School board members scrambled. In their meeting room, under shimmering fluorescent lights, the superintendent of the district, Dr. Rebecca Gallant, heard from angry parents. Some complaining about disruptive students, others outraged at targeting an innocent black child. The board paused his suspension pending further review. They asked Principal Anderson for the full threat assessment. She presented it, a half-page memo filled with vague impressions, zero mention of race. No mention of record, behavior, or threat. The board demanded clarity, within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Maurice sat at home under the weight of hashtags like #LetMauriceBack and #BlackInjustice. Interviews with community podcasts portrayed him as quiet, observant, never once confrontational. But the principal's office held its ground. It was needed for safety, for consistency, for precedent. The subtle weaponization of threat became invisible to those who didn't see the racial undercurrent. By the end of that week, the pressure built. Mark Lewis published a follow-up, quotes from former students who said they felt tracked after minor incidents, their casualness recorded, their normalcy reframed. Now the superintendent called for a town hall meeting, tonight, 7 p.m. in the student center. Parents, students, community leaders expected heavy attendance. Maurice wasn't sure he'd walk in. His next steps felt unclear. The entire issue of implicit bias, student safety, institutional authority had collided in that principal's office. More than a discipline issue, it was a test of who gets to define safety, who gets to be a threat. A thunderstorm rolled in overhead as dusk fell. Rain tapped on the school windows like urgent fingers. Inside, rows of folding chairs were set up under harsh hall lights. The stage was empty, no banners, no sign, just a microphone and a table facing the audience. The principal would lead. The superintendent, board members, community activists would be there. Maurice would listen. The question burned ahead. Would he apologize to the room, or would the school apologize to him? And yet the unresolved heartbeat of this story lay in one question. If Maurice in a hoodie and focused face could be assumed dangerous, how many other students, how many other faces, had been scrutinized, suspended, erased without cause? And now, as the storm clouds loomed heavier, the door to the student center creaked open. Figures began to enter. The principal in heels and gray suit took her seat. Dr. Gallant followed, files in hand. Community leaders, parents, peers, media. Maurice took a breath, held his backpack in hand. The microphone called them all toward reckoning. The public eye was on them. The next words would redraw lines. And in that tense moment, as the first parent rose to speak, the principal stands to defend her decision, but the community's response, and a crucial viral moment, threatened to expose whether justice can be restored, or if another student will pay for Maurice's threatening look. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. As Principal Anderson rose to speak at tonight's town hall, the fluorescent lights felt harsh, too bright for honest conversation. She began, "We at Maple Grove High have a duty to ensure safety," but her words faltered under dozens of expectant eyes. Maurice sat near the front, arms folded, heart pounding. Behind him, parents, students, reporters, community activists, all bristled with concern. The question hung: was he a threat, or had bias turned him into one? Before she could elaborate, Mark Lewis's flickering video projected on the screen. First, hallway footage of Maurice walking calmly, headphones tucked in pocket, eyes averted. Then, footage of a white student walking the same corridor earlier with earbuds, posture identical, and no school official calling him threatening. Whispers echoed. One by one, testimonies unfolded. "He was just focused," said a student. He looked like he was late to class. Another parent challenged the narrow framing. We've all walked with purpose. Why is intent only dangerous in one body? The crowd murmured agreement. Mark spoke next. Studies confirm what we feel. Black students are 4 times more likely to be suspended than white peers, even for the same behavior. Implicit bias shapes perception, not reality. The auditorium stilled. Dr. Gallant rose to acknowledge systemic issues and halted the suspension pending a full external review. She announced a task force on bias training. But murmurs filled the hall. Some parents bristled at social justice. Others cheered. The issue fractured the room. Backstage, Maurice's mother wept and Mark offered support. Maurice felt a rush of solidarity, but also uncertainty. Would words translate to action? Could he return to normal school? Then a reporter asked him to speak. He stepped to the mic and paused, searching for his voice. He cleared his throat. I'm not a threat. But if I'm made one, by how I look, then that tells us more about you than me. Applause erupted, but so did tension. That night, Mark drafted a full exposé: dates, comparisons, tone, and staff bias. He considered taking this to a national platform, yet worried about retaliation. Meanwhile, emails were flying in the district office. Administrators demanded explanations, while parents demanded results. In the days that followed, district officials released an interim memo acknowledging perceptual misjudgment. They invited Maurice back, with conditions: resume classes, attend peer forums, and participate in training. But the key question hung in Maurice's mind: would returning hold the promise of real change, or simply reinsert him into a system that still sees him as a problem? As Maurice prepares to return to Maple Grove, will his presence force real transformation, or will the system pivot patient, systemic safeguards behind perfunctory reforms? And no one realizes the final escalator: an anonymous complaint to the district office will test trust in new policies and bring everything crashing down. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. As Maurice re-enters Maple Grove High, the halls feel different. Eyes linger longer, whispers swirl louder, even though he's officially reinstated. His presence is both a victory and a test. Administrators smile, but it's strained. Students stare. Some offer nods, others avert their gaze. He heads directly to the auditorium. Today's session will follow the town hall, and they're starting with hard truths. Front and center are district officials, his principal, board members, and a newly assembled bias review panel, including a representative from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. They're here to launch a district-wide initiative, seeded by Maurice's case, focusing on implicit racial bias in disciplinary practices, a deeply systemic issue. And now they're ready to confront it with both data and action. The first presentation, a slideshow titled, "When Black Faces Are Misread as Threatening," populates the screen. It references a 2016 Guardian analysis. Teachers more closely scrutinize Black boys' behavior for expected misbehavior. Next, they reference a commission report showing Black students are disproportionately disciplined for subjective infractions, like looking threatening or being disrespectful, despite equivalent behavior rates. A hush falls. Maurice glances over at Dr. Rebecca Gallant, who nods solemnly. She steps forward. We will begin implementing bias training and regular audits of disciplinary data. Staff will take implicit association tests. Teachers and administrators will be required to document objective behaviors, not perceptions, before issuing suspensions. Then an uncomfortable slide: teacher perceptions. Black students more likely judged as threatening. They cite Ohio State's Kirwan Institute report showing educators are quicker to perceive Black children as harmful based on posture, expression, or tone. A parent murmurs, "That was me, I thought it was fear, but maybe it was bias." Next, they present a planned disciplinary transparency dashboard for all schools, a public portal tracking suspensions and infractions by race, age, and context. The idea: accountability through visibility backed by policy. The audience shifts, support and skepticism coexist. With formalities done, the floor opens for questions. Maurice stands. "Thank you," he begins, voice steady. "I'm glad these steps are planned, but what happens if implicit bias triggers kick in after I walk by? If a new student looks threatening tomorrow, how do you protect them?" His question pierces the atmosphere. Dr. Gallant replies, "We'll enforce dual control. At least 2 staff must agree on subjective behavior before issuing discipline. We'll leverage hallway video audits. And any teacher who flags implicit bias must receive follow-up support." A moment of tense silence, then applause, hesitant but real. Maurice exhales. This feels like progress. But outside the auditorium in a glass-walled office, Principal Anderson frowns at the screen. She taps her pen on a pad labeled Threat Assessments. Underneath, a new sheriff in town, but is she ready to change her own mindset? As Maurice heads to his next class, something buzzes in the district email system. A digital flag, anonymous complaint filed, possible threat, male student in 10th grade, hoodie, late arrival, intimidating posture. That's all. The email includes a security snapshot, a blurred image of a black student walking into school earlier that morning. No name, no context. Just a flag and alarm. Moments later, Vice Principal Harris approaches Maurice in the corridor. He holds a phone, glancing apprehensively. "Maurice, someone's flagged you again. We need to talk in my office." Maurice's pulse spikes. Feels like déjà vu, but worse. He glances at cameras overhead. He wonders, did he trigger a system built to watch him forever? Inside the office, the walls feel close. The VP clears his throat. "We received a report someone felt threatened. We need to interview you." Again. Maurice closes his eyes. He feels the weight of that single snapshot pressing into policy. The reforms feel fragile, tethered to goodwill, not system. As the VP begins asking questions, Maurice looks back toward the hallway. He sees students pass by. A white student with hoodie, no one blinks. He realizes, the policy alone can't stop the bias pipeline. And the anonymous system can be weaponized, by anyone at any time. With new anonymous complaints triggering bias-trained staff, will the district's reforms hold, or crumble? As cameras linger on Maurice's tense face, an ominous alert pops up in the transparency dashboard. Investigation pending, potential threat. Who triggered it and why? The next part will reveal whether this is a targeted escalation or systemic failure, and whether Maurice's fight is only just beginning. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. As the district's bias review initiative began rolling out, Maple Grove High's administration implemented an anonymous reporting system for potential threats. A text or app-based hotline where anyone could alert staff if a student seemed suspicious or intimidating. National studies on such systems show mixed outcomes. While they can reduce violence and foster connectedness, they also risk misuse through false or biased complaints. For instance, a University of Michigan study found that anonymous tips cut serious incidents by 13.5%, but false alarms still drove many disciplinary responses. That morning, a new alert flashed. Anonymous tip number 27. Male student, hoodie, late to class, intimidating posture, with a grainy black and white timestamp snapshot. The system's algorithm flagged Maurice again. Vice Principal Harris, tired but courteous, led him into her office. Maurice's heart sank. Was this a glitch, or targeted harassment? Inside, Harris recounted the tip. No name. No context. Just suspicion. Maurice pleaded, "I walked in from the rain, that's all." Harris's voice wavered. "We have to investigate under policy." She offered him peer following rather than discipline, but the damage had been done. The system that was supposed to protect him might label him again. As word spread, some students cheered, "They're watching out for danger." Others murmured, "This is profiling." Maurice returned to class, each step heavy. That afternoon, a policy oversight meeting convened. Dr. Gallant, administrators, and bias panel members including an NAACP rep and digital safety expert, gathered around a long table. They reviewed the tip system's metrics. Hundreds of innocuous alerts, 3 escalations, 2 leading to supports, 1 to an unnecessary counselor referral. A CNN insight cautioned, while anonymous tiplins can intercept real threats, they can also lead to misuse and privacy issues. The NAACP rep's voice cut through, "We see the pattern. This system empowers anyone to target Black students. Without validation safeguards, it's reinforcing bias." Dr. Gallant nodded gravely. They drafted revisions, require teacher confirmation, time-limited flags, human-led filtering, and student education. The plan would roll out next week. But as Maurice left school, a message blew across WhatsApp. A video clip of him walking with headphones, slowed and overdubbed with ominous music, captioned, Maple Grove Menace. It was edited to align with the anonymous tip. It spread fast. He watched as it looped on student phones. At home, his mother gently closed his laptop. They're trying to label you again. Maurice tried to sleep, haunted by the thought that nothing had changed, and that he might never shed the threatening black teen label. Next morning, Dr. Gallant and Harris met with Maurice. They'd updated the tip system. But they also knew the rumors video could re-traumatize him, and possibly incite more complaints. So they offered him a restorative circle, mediated dialogue with students, led by counselors, a chance to humanize him directly. Reluctantly he agreed. The circle convened in the counseling office. 10 students sat in a wide ring, some with sincere curiosity, others reserved, a few skeptical. A counselor invited Maurice to share how this process felt. He spoke quietly but firmly, I'm a student, not a threat. These messages, these tips, they don't see me. They see a stereotype. One student raised her hand. I didn't submit the tip, but I watched the video. It made me feel tense, even though I know it's manipulated. Another defended, I used the system once, I thought it was quick access to safety. The circle paused. They all sat in silence. Maurice asked, so now what? Should I talk less? Dress differently? A teacher spoke up, we have to be part of the change. We can't rely on systems that make us less human. As the restorative circle continues, a surprise witness enters. A classmate with evidence that someone deliberately manipulated the video and submitted multiple anonymous tips to target Maurice. Their identity and motives will determine whether the school reforms hold, or if Maurice's fight becomes far more personal and far more urgent. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Maurice sat in the restorative circle, pulse steadying as the anonymous student entered, a junior named Malik, quiet and reserved. Malik cleared his throat and spoke softly, it was me. I made the video, slowed it, added music. I submitted the anonymous tip. A tremor passed through the room. Malik's confession cracked the atmosphere. He continued, I thought it would be funny but it got out of hand. I didn't mean for Maurice to get into trouble again. I was mad at him for ignoring me. His eyes dropped. I wanted to see what would happen. Counselors exchanged looks. Some students recoiled, some leaned forward. Dr. Gallant, chairing the circle, spoke, Malik, your actions harmed Maurice and the community. This is a chance to repair that harm. Olivia, the NAACP liaison, nodded. Truth is the first step. Malik met Maurice's eyes. I'm sorry, he said, voice raw. I didn't realize how serious it would be, for him, for the school. Maurice took a breath. Thank you for telling the truth. That matters. Tension eased. Another student, white, arms folded, stood. We all played it. It wasn't just Malik. Heads nodded. That honesty rippled across the room. Meanwhile, the district attested they'd revised the anonymous tip system. No alerts without context, a teacher cosign, a filter board before action. They pointed to a Michigan study showing anonymous reviews reduce bias when coupled with structured protocols, yet misuse still threatens fairness. They also unveiled an interim bias transparency dashboard, showing suspensions by race, staff training logs and complaints with outcomes. Before the changes, Black students made up just 12% of enrollment but received 40% of subjective suspensions. 3 weeks in, the gap narrowed, though not closed. 1 week later, a formal hearing was held in Dr. Gallant's office. Maurice, Malik, parents, administrators, counselors. Malik presented a public apology. Maurice accepted. The district pledged mandatory bias training for all staff, including surveillance of hallway flags for misuse, and a peer circle program teaching conflict resolution and community building. Olivia held data on further misuses of the tip system, mostly from late-night prank callers, and recommended plug-in of digital filters and sanction for misuse. But change isn't automatic. 2 months in, a state inspector visited and recorded. Biased disciplinary rates fell by 25%, voluntary reporting of misuses rose by 30%, and restorative circles resolved over 80% of relational conflicts before escalation. These outcomes align with studies showing restorative practices can reduce racial disparities when led with consistency and community partnership. In the final scene, Maurice walked down the hall, shoulders relaxed. Students greeted him. Cameras from a TV crew filmed the biased dashboard screen, shows declining disparity. But then he passed Vice Principal Harris. In her hand, a new tip alert. Maurice's heart skipped. He stopped, waiting, then Harris reviewed it, sighed and declined to act. The screen blinked, flag dismissed. Maurice exhaled, tension easing, but remained vigilant. Change had come, but it required constant guardianship. Institutions can carry the weight of implicit bias, even when intentions are good. Anonymous systems may protect or harm depending on design and oversight. But truth, transparency, and restorative accountability, grounded in research and community, can transform suspicion into safety. When a student bravely confesses and a system chooses inquiry over assumption, real justice emerges, and real healing can begin. Maurice's journey didn't end with suspension or technologies. It ended with community, dialogue, and persistent reflection. The greatest lesson: systems respond when people speak truth to power, when policies are held to data, and when humanity guides institutional reform. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.